RBI 2024 examination is around the corner. The notification can come out anytime in the next 2 to 3 months, and then the final examination can be held. In this scenario, it becomes very, very relevant to understand how to effectively revise, especially the current affairs, to make sure that you don't forget anything in the examination, that you're able to recall whatever is required, and you're also able to connect the dots and put in the required information where it belongs. That is one of the most important aspects of active or effective revision. Because the major problem that arises in descriptive answer writing is that you know what needs to be written, but you're not able to recall the right thing at the right time. And after the examination, you at many times, many events, regret that I could have written this, I could have recalled this fact, I could have recalled this argument. Why does that happen and what is the solution? Let's talk about the solution directly. I have created two very rudimentary diagrams in order to help you understand and help you internalize the idea behind these two techniques that I'm going to recommend to you for revision. The first is something that happens when you read something for the first time. This is a test tube method of reading and revising. What you do in this is every concept is like an isolated in silo test tube where you fill this test tube, which is one concept, with water, which is understanding of the concept. These test tubes are not to be mixed with each other. सबका अलग अलग तरीके का पानी है, सब अलग अलग आप भरोगे. Which means that in first reading you have to read population individually, then read education individually, then read health individually separately, and you can revise these three individually only using active revision. If you don't know what active revision is, I have already created a lot of videos on active revision. It's there on my YouTube channel. I will also provide a link in my description about active revision. You can use that. So this is something that you do in your first reading of any topic, including current affairs. If you are reading Spotlight for the first time, you don't mix up Spotlight with government schemes. You don't mix up Spotlight with RBI 247 or with PIB 247. You read them separately and you revise them using active revision. This is partial job done. This is not the entire job done. The entire job happens here. Now, this is like filling a bathtub, and what happens here is you use a technique which is more advanced than active revision, and this is called as interleaving. This is where I want to focus upon because this is the first time that I'm explaining interleaving. The gist of interleaving is compare and contrast. What you do in this technique of revision is when you have read the same thing in silo for the second time, let's say you're reading Spotlight for the second time, reading government schemes for the second time, reading RBI 247 for the second time, you assume that RBI 247 is not completely isolated from Spotlight and vice versa, or government schemes is not completely isolated from Spotlight, or ESI is not completely isolated from government schemes. And you start assuming that both these topics are a part of the same tub. They do not belong to different test tubes, they do not belong to different tubs, they are a part of the same tub. And as you start putting in this information, you will find that there are some overlaps between different topics that you're reading. You have to find these overlaps and compare and contrast between these overlaps. For example, when you read population or poverty for the second time, you will realize that there is often a question which is asked in NCRTs as well as in other notebooks and short notes and etc., is how population affects poverty and vice versa. How both these affect each other, how both these intensify each other. Poverty results into higher population in turn results into higher poverty. How both of them are stimulating each other. So there is an overlap between poverty and population and poverty here, and this you will understand only when you take them out from their test tubes and put them in the same tub. So this comparing and contrasting is not possible in the first instance when you're reading something for the first time, but when you're reading the same thing for the second time, then you use interleaving, You revise using active revision, plus you start trying to compare and contrast between two or multiple topics. Let's say I'm reading something about PLI scheme in Spotlight. I know that PLI scheme is a major scheme by the government of India. It should be there in the government scheme section, government scheme folder, government scheme document. Even if it is not there, I don't care. I just have to right now itself just revise my entire PLI also. Automatically, I'm revising government schemes notes as well. So if I have access, I pick up government schemes notes, I find PLI scheme there. Now I have an overlap. Spotlight PLI, wherever it is discussed, plus government schemes PLI scheme, wherever it is discussed. So this results in creating an interlocking kind of a thing in your own mind, which helps you remember things better and be able to write better in the final examination. That's where interleaving ultimately helps you, because when you compare and contrast between two interrelated concepts, the length of time for which that concept will stay in your mind is longer, and at the same time, the amount of knowledge that you will gather, the amount of analysis that you will gather from that topic will also be better. Okay. Remember, because it is like filling a bathtub, so interleaving takes more time, and that is why I'm not recommending that you do it in first reading. So you never start with interleaving. You always start with active revision in reading 1, and when you're reading or revising the same thing for the second time using active revision only, so you're going to keep using active revision, you add interleaving onto it. Okay. There are some other techniques which you must be aware about that you can use, that are writing for descriptive, that is a very good method of revising, and secondly, taking mocks for objective questions. That is also a very good way of revising. So it is like judging your performance and critically analyzing your own performance, critically evaluating your own performance using questions. That is a wonderful way of revising. So these are the 4 steps in which you move. Step 1, reading for the first time, active revision. Step 2, reading for the second time, compare and contrast different topics using interleaving, keep doing active revision. Step 3, writing descriptive answers, especially so that the entire scope of the chapter is now in your mind. You remember the importance, you remember advantages, you remember disadvantages, you remember relationship between population and poverty, you remember population policy of India, you remember different schemes related to population in India or related to poverty in India. Now finally, because you have an entire scope of the chapter in your mind and you've done some answer writing, finally you can take objective mocks as well and critically evaluate your own performance. So these are the steps in which you can move, through which you can revise everything better. You can try and remember more and more. No one in this world can remember anything by just reading it for the first time. Some people need 5 readings, some need 2, some need 10, some need probably 20 as well. So identify how many readings, how many times, and what kind of steps do you need to follow. And once you have followed all these 4 steps, automatically you will see that your retention and recall will increase to a very great extent. And this is something that you need to follow for the upcoming RBI examination as well. This was all from my side. I hope this small session, this small episode was useful in helping you understand how to revise and how to remember more, especially current affairs, because I've given some examples of current affairs as well. And I'm very sure you're going to apply these methods, and these methods are going to help you prepare better and also score more in your examination. All the best.